A few years ago, I realized that Christmas was exactly 6 months from my actual birthday, June 25th. I am not sure why it took so long for me to realize this, but I now treat Christmas as my half birthday and review each 6 month period as if it were a year. The past 6 months have felt like living multiple years. The most natural place to start tends to be around work, so I'm just going to list what I've been doing from June until now. Hosted 2 live 2-day mastermind intensives, did 3 full VIP days for clients, launched an AI summit for solopreneurs, and hosted a 4-week accelerator afterwards. I launched my first full-length assessment with help from Maeve Ferguson. I highly recommend her. I released my new book with Andy Storch, Own Your Brand, Own Your Career. I recorded the audiobook for Own Your Brand, Own Your Career. Started my weekly newsletter. This is my 15th straight issue. Goal is to make each issue worth $500. I committed to YouTube videos and a podcast for each newsletter. Migrated 2 membership communities to a new platform. I did a webinar on writing books. I filmed an entire 7-module course in studio for a side business that I have with Mary Valloni. I ran 2 webinars for that side business, one in August and one in December. I launched a 4-week accelerator class for that business, and I committed to weekly YouTube videos and podcasts for that business as well. Psychotic, I know. Please do not take this as something admirable or even normal or recommended. I do not recommend it. I am shocked myself that I pulled all this off, but what I really want to share is how all of this set the table for what was actually important to learn. Number 1. Death has been a real teacher. The biggest catalyst for all the above was my dad's passing in June. I knew it would happen at some point because he had cancer, but it was still tough to navigate. Since his passing, 2 former clients have also passed, both way too young, and this really hit me hard. I often end up spending a lot of time with clients when the projects are higher touch, even if it's not weeks or months on end. When we do spend time together, it's usually about really important, often very personal things because of the nature of my work with him. A lot of my career is built around helping people tell their stories. And if you're going to do that well and with integrity, you're going to have to get to know people, what drives them, motivates them, what they're scared of, what they've been through. They often tell me things that I don't even think they tell their closest friends. In one instance, I was working on a book with a client about some really personal things, and that book unfortunately never got released. The other did incredible work for impoverished people. I found out he passed when his organization posted on Facebook. We had just DM'd each other a couple weeks prior, and that client was my age. Now, a couple more public people died that I obviously wasn't close to, but their passing has made me think a lot because death has just been nearby. Former Vice President Dick Cheney died. I have thoughts about him, most aren't good. Movie director Rob Reiner. Former NFL star and future Hall of Famer Nick Mangold, who played here in New York for the Jets. Mangold was just a couple years younger than me. All this shows you can reach the pinnacle of your profession or society, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? Death gave me the gift of urgency. I've become more aware of it, more cognizant of it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It helps put a lot of things into perspective. What I spend my time doing, who I spend it with, where my energy, focus, and money go. Number 2, what I had to subtract is more important than what I built. Now, death is, of course, the ultimate subtraction. It doesn't happen at convenient times. But in life, I've discovered most endings, even those that aren't fatal, don't happen at convenient times. That laundry list of things I built or launched earlier, high performers and entrepreneurs, they get dopamine hits from that, I swear. But none of that could get done without subtraction. What's often missing from these kinds of year-end lists is what needs to be given up in order to make things happen. Subconsciously, I think I loaded myself with so much to launch that I'd have no choice but to cut things that I'd let settle in for too long. First and foremost was drinking. I've mentioned this here and there in previous episodes, but in August, I started to track the days I didn't drink because I needed the focus to get all that other stuff done. Most people don't know this, but I never drank when I was in my 20s and 30s. I only really started while I was going through a divorce in my 40s. So alcohol and I are seeing other people now. I'm just getting back to who I was before it. The second thing I cut was all retainer clients in my marketing agency model. That left a ton of revenue on the table, more than what was comfortable to part with, but I tightened the belt and felt this was really necessary for that season. One of my favorite books of all time is Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. I've recommended this book more times than I can count. The best illustration from the book is that of a rose bush. For it to thrive, the good buds have to be cut in order for the great ones to get the limited resources that are available. So I had to make decisions on ending good buds. Those were really hard because they weren't just good, they were really good buds, like communities and masterminds that bore real fruit in my life. I might revisit them later, but I needed more space and margin to head into the next year. Also, I put web blockers on these 4 sites: CNN, Fox News, ESPN, and GameSpot. Now, essentially, these are all news sites, which might as well be just gossip. I do not need daily gossip about what His Majesty King Orange is doing in the White House on any single day. He is not going to jail anytime soon, people. How else the Yankees are going to make stupid offseason moves, or how many delays until Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. I really don't need to know these things. And it was terribly pathetic to see how habitually I'd go on my phone and type those websites in only to see they were blocked. I'm a total freaking addict. Now, I also do not keep social media apps on my phone. That's something I've done for years. It's one of the best decisions ever. And in short, I'm just trying to use this question as a filter. What no longer deserves my nervous system? Point number 3, no more anesthesia. What you can feel, you can heal. I came across this saying, what you can feel, you can heal, from Louise Hay, who was quoting a book by John Gray of that same title. Now, I haven't read that book by Gray, but I love that line. All this noise I've been talking about, work, news, alcohol, hustle, all that was just anesthesia to keep me from feeling real emotions. When I cut down, I was surprised how melancholy I became. I was like sad. I was down a lot. Turns out I've been addicted to chaos my entire life, and when you wean yourself off an addiction, you crash. So now I'm just really trying to train my own nervous system to live inside my life. Despite all that activity that happened in my business these last few months, they've actually been the calmest of my career. They've also helped me realize I don't always have to be useful to be valuable. In a previous episode, I talked about living an unarmored life. I've always felt my value in the world was through how useful or helpful I was. Now, in business, this has served me well. You need to be useful if you want to run a good business. I've long said that business is solving a problem for a profit. But in life, you don't really need to be useful to be loved. That's a terrible way to navigate through your day-to-day life. My dog is pretty useless, but I pick up her crap every single day, and I love that furry meat bag. My nephews are just the same, and I love those guys too. So this brings up a split I never saw before in my life until recently. In business life, I've always looked forward, never backwards. I never rest on my laurels or tally up my accomplishments in business, this episode being an exception. In my personal life, though, I always look backwards and never forwards. I have a hard time moving forward or envisioning the future that I want. It's really weird. So stopping the anesthesia has helped me bridge that split. For a long time, I lived as this character, right? Going through my day-to-day life. Then I learned to zoom out and look at everything as if I was the narrator of the story. And now I guess I'm just trying to be here. What you feel, you can heal. Last point, learning to trust myself has helped me love myself. This is the most important thing I can share in all of this craziness, that I really came to trust myself. This was important because for me, that allowed me to love myself. There's a lot of cotton candy advice on social media about loving yourself. I find most of it to be very shallow justifications for being more self-absorbed because, like in real life, you can't truly love someone until you get to know them. You can't truly love someone until you trust them. Over the years, people have told me that I'm a leader, but I confess I've never seen myself that way. I held leadership positions, but I didn't think of myself as a leader because I didn't actually really trust myself. I didn't feel that I could be trusted with more and to play a bigger game. Shame has a very loud voice in my life. I'm working on that. And as Gay Hendricks talks about in his book, The Big Leap, my biggest barrier has been feeling fundamentally flawed. Being Korean and growing up in church is great for feeling fundamentally flawed. The Japanese have this art form called kintsugi. When pottery breaks, they repair it with gold. The cracks become part of the beauty, part of the story. I have long feared my fractures. Working on them has helped build massive trust in myself. That trust has allowed me to like myself and love myself because I know myself better. If you wrestle with this idea of loving yourself at all, a season of getting to know yourself might really help you. I'm not sure what this next year holds for me. If it's anything like this past year, I have no idea. I'm not even going to try to predict it. If I'm here, then I will be here. For those who have me in their life, I will be there with them. And as I said earlier, none of what I've shared in this episode is meant to be prescriptive or advice. Do not try all the work things that I tried or pulled off. I didn't even know I was doing it at the time. And generally, I try not to give advice to people who do not ask, even in my own podcast or YouTube channel or my newsletter. So I'm just sharing things as I go through them. But I do want to say this. Thank you. If I've been on your reading list or your watch list, your podcast list this past year, I do have a little game I play. I've mentioned this way at the top of the episode. I try to make every episode or newsletter issue worth $500 of insights. That's just a little game I play, right? And since this is a business thing, I'll stick to my be helpful credo here. And if we were together in any way this past year, I'm grateful for our time together. I really do consider it a privilege. And I am wishing you the best in this next year to come. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot if you would like the video or comment on it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. It really supports my work. And if you like this, email to you each week on Tuesday when a new episode drops. Just go to mikekim.com/newsletter and I'll be happy to send you the update. See you soon.